Thanks for joining the Frosty Sid channel today for episode 5 of the garden tours. We're in the last week of July, in fact, the final Friday in July of 2022. And we're going to take a little tour and probably do some harvesting as well. Here we go. All right, we're going to start with the fig. I told you last week that I was conflicted about what to do with this brown turkey fig, and in thinking about it and researching it a little more, I think we're going to give this one away to someone in a higher number hardiness zone, USD hardiness zone. We're in about 6A here most years. And so we repotted this plant about a week ago, and it's looking really good. It had a little bit of stress. We got one yellow leaf over there, but I think we're going to be able to get this, keep this for a few months and get it given away this fall. The Desert King, which we've planted, and if you keep up with our Instagram, you probably saw this on a reel there. It's starting to do a lot better now that it's in the ground. We do have a few leaves left that still have, what may be rust, but it may just be stress on the plant. We pulled off a number of these leaves that wanted to come off, like this one's had a lot of heat stress, and but it doesn't want to come off, so we're not going to pull it off. And some of these other ones, they don't really want to come off either. So we're just going to leave those. We are going to hit it with some fertilizer and make sure that, we just help it from the stress of being planted, because this was a potted plant, 3-gallon pot, and undoing the root binding in the pot and spreading that out in the hole was probably pretty stressful, but pretty happy with how this one's doing. Now we're going to move on to this part of the garden. You'll see we've changed some things, and we're probably going to take out some of this basil that's going to seed. We may leave one plant here. We've got some other plants around the garden, but the peppers, they're just starting to do really well now. So we went through a couple weeks over 100 degrees highs during the day. The pimentos are coming on and starting to ripen. We just got lots of stuff. I think every pepper plant now has some sort of pepper on it. All of them have peppers. So see, there's pepper down there. The peach cherapita is doing really well. And when these get ripe, they're like a peach orange color. So there's some down in there. And they've got a nice little, pop to them. Let me pull one of these off. And so they just got, they're hotter than a jalapeno, I think, but they're just a little pop of energy there, heat. So the Buena Mulatas are all doing really good. Those are basically like a cayenne type heat that is purple, but they ripen to red. You can use them when they're purple, and we made pepper sauce out of them last year. They've got these real pretty purple flowers on them, but every plant is starting to load up with Buena Mulatas. The tomatoes continue to put on. I've got one you see right over there that just got away from me. I didn't see it. I really need to come in here and do a bunch of pruning on this. And this is the carbon tomato area right here. The Prudence Pride tomatoes that I kind of complained about because they were so slow, they are starting to mature. We picked 3 or 4 pounds of peppers off of tomatoes off of them so far, and I really like them. I think the flavor is better, a little bit better. We've done some blind taste tests here at the house. I think we like the flavor of the carbon better, but this one is really good. And so we may grow it again next year, and we'll just have to do a better job with keeping it pruned and staying on top of it. So this bed, you'll notice there's been some changes. We have harvested, this used to be lettuce seed. We harvested that after the last video and started collecting seed from the lettuce plants, which I think was winter density. And then this quarter of the bed was beets, and we harvested about 9.3 pounds of beets out of this little area right here, and made a gallon of pickles, and we had about half a gallon of fresh beet salad that we made, and we're going to be eating on for about a week. These carrots are going to come out today, and they are all ready, and they're really nice. Let's harvest a couple and show you, because, well, I broke that one off because I was in a hurry. That sucks. Let's see. So you can see how big around they are, and that's unfortunate that I was in a hurry and pulled that one out. But all these are going to come out. There we go. And they're just really nice carrot production. So we're going to harvest all these. The tops, that pepper's got me in the back of my throat. All the tops we're going to do chop and drop. So see, all these beet tops are down here on the ground, and they've only been here for a few days. And you can see they're already starting to break down real nice. We had a little bit of rain lately. The rest of these carrot tops are going to do the same thing. We're going to chop and drop them on this bed. We're going to cover this bed with some compost, and then cover it with some Pro Mix and let it rest for about 3 weeks. And then we're going to plant into it. And the earthworms will get to this organic matter and start breaking it down. So let's see here. Need to come through and harvest some tomatoes. I see a big tomato back there. We'll see it from the other side. We'll probably harvest that today. That's a Prudence Pride. I don't know if you can see it. But we need to come out here and get just basically all the ripe cherry tomatoes this weekend and start drying those, or freeze drying them, or using them in fresh salad. And that's the goal, is to get out here, because we got plenty of green ones still coming on. And then we're going to start getting this bed ready, because this bed is largely unplanted in. We've got a basil plant here that's going to seed. We're going to probably harvest that, get this bed ready to start planting in about 2 to 3 weeks. The summer squash that's potted continues to do good. I'm a big fan of trellising it. This is the first year that we've let it grow vertically. I've learned a lot about that and really like that. Let's see, oh yeah, there's a bunch of nymphs. Looks like they were just hatching, so I missed some eggs. It looks like, do you see those? That black patch. And so those are just starting to hatch. So what we're going to do is we're going to grab this and we're going to go get this in the lawn bin and get rid of it right now, and then I'll come back. Okay, we're back. We got rid of those, and that's the nice thing about it being in pots, is it does make it a lot easier to check for pests, in particular the squash bugs. And so the summer squash is doing really well in the pot. We'll probably go ahead and collect this one, and that'll be a good eating size crookneck summer squash. So we'll come back around and pick that up in a bit. We talked about that. Let's turn over here. Picked up some more humus and manure. That'll be part of the organic matter that we use to prep some of these beds for the fall garden. The North Georgia Candy Roaster, which is the winter squash with the variegated, it almost looks like powdery mildew, but it's not. Those are just the color of the leaves. It's doing really well, and it's spread out all over the garden. There's only 2 plants, and to give you some idea, you know, from there around to the end of this vine, which goes this way, is probably 35 or 40 feet, and it goes over the fence and out into the lawn, and I'm starting to tip those. We're starting to get the 106 week with 3 or 4 days at 106 killed off some of the fruit that wasn't super mature, but we're starting to put on a lot of new fruit now. And we've got, I think the biggest one is right here. And so that is approaching 2 foot long right now. So hopefully that was in focus. So anyway, it's doing really well, trying to keep it watered. We had a little bit of rain in the last 24 hours. So I'm certain that there are probably squash bugs in here, but you know, I just really can't manage getting in there and, you know, looking under the leaves and that kind of thing. The ground cherry is starting to produce some ripe ground cherries, which are like a tomatillo. They have a fruity tropical flavor. You can, you know, fold these husks back and just eat them fresh, which I'm fixing to do. And or you could dip these in chocolate and make a dessert out of them. But once they start dropping, that's when you know that they're ready to harvest. They just have a great flavor to them. There's another one. And these things will grow like a weed. They grow wild here in my state. Not this particular variety, because this one's made for gardening, but Aunt Molly's, I think, is what this is. But they will grow like a weed. And in fact, these are volunteer, one plant right here. And they get big, they get large. So, as I mentioned earlier, I think every one of the pepper plants has peppers on it now and is really starting to make. Right now, this plant is about, I don't know, 4.5 foot off the ground. It's inside a whiskey barrel, half whiskey barrel. And it's got, starting to get lots of fruit on it. They're not very big yet, and we haven't tasted one of these ripe, but I'm really looking forward to that. The sweet potato, which is all this stuff that's right in here, it's growing in this 6 foot raised bed in the back. I mean, I guess it's doing fine. It's all growing. Japanese beetles are out, starting to get a little bit of pressure. I don't know if it's from the beetles, but it's definitely from something. Some of the older leaves are starting to get some pressure. But, you know, when it dies back, we'll dig them up and see what we got. The cucumbers, we're about done with pickling for the year. And right now we're letting some of these get a little bigger, and we're going to make relish. Dill pickle relish, and I think we're going to be done. And there's just tons of pickles here all over. I don't know if you can see all those. They're in focus, but lots and lots of pickles, pickling cucumbers. And then we'll probably clean those out we still don't have any pods that I see of beans of any kind, so I don't know what the deal is there. We got lots of slicers. We've been giving a few away. We'll probably make, some more fresh cucumber salad this weekend, and we may try and can some of that. And then I got one that's too big here. And with the cucumbers like this that are just getting really big, what I like to do with these, instead of just throwing them away, is to cut them in half, take a spoon, scoop out the seeds, and you can peel it first or you can peel it later, whatever your preference is. But peel it, cut it in half, and take the seeds out, and then so you've got like a little boat, and then slice that in about 1 inch thick, 3/4 to 1 inch thick pieces, so you got like little half moons, and put those in the freezer and freeze them and use them as ice cubes, and it gives a nice cucumber flavor without going through the process of juicing or anything like that. So we'll come back and get that later. The rainforest pepper, probably one of the earliest producing pepper plants that we have had. And definitely everything's starting to get ripe. We've been using these peppers. We used them in canning, and they're a real pretty pepper, and they've got a real fruity flavor to them, and just loving them. So there's lots of them. There's lots more in the back there. I don't know if you can see that, but they're starting to ripen. So we got beat up by some rain the other day, but lots of flowers still, and still coming on. So the corn is generally starting to do real well. I mean, obviously they're mature. They're 12 foot tall probably. The ears are starting to fill out. So hopefully we'll make some corn. The amaranth, still doing good. On the amaranth, pretty. The zucchinis, they're still making, and same song as the crookneck squash. These are just really easy to, look under the leaves from the bottom or stand here and pull them around. It's just a lot easier than it being on the ground. So next year we'll probably trellis this one too. The kale, I was hoping to freeze dry a big crop of this to make kale green powder out of. But I came out and I had, we had that rain, and kind of overnight I had an infestation of harlequin bugs. I think we put a dent in them, and any of the leaves that we took off that had any sort of insect eggs or stuff on the underside, we just put those in the bin because there were a lot of harlequin eggs on the leaves, and I put about, 80 adult harlequin bugs in the mosquito bucket. And so these are trimmed up now. Hopefully we'll be able to get a fall crop and get a bunch freeze dried, and then we'll just stay on top of picking the harlequin bugs off. We trimmed up the leaves on the Brussels sprouts quite a bit, and any leaves that didn't have any insect egg pressure on them, we just chopped and dropped those, because even though these Brussels sprouts are going to stay here for a while and mature, we're still going to come in and cover this with organic matter and plant into it. And we're just going to plant around this kale in the corner and around these two Brussels sprout bushes, and have fall crop here going into the winter. But I mean, they are bigger. I know they're still really small, and Brussels sprouts just take forever. I mean, they take a long time, and that one over there is maybe doing a better. We'll look at it in a minute. We're gonna go ahead and cut this one out, and we're not gonna pull it. We're just gonna cut it out at, it's robust. Like a little tree. And so we're just gonna chop and drop that. We'll cover it with organic matter, but that's never gonna mature in our season. And we need to come in and do some pruning on the vines. This pepper plant is starting to put on little fruit. And I don't know if that's the biggest fruit. Looks like there might be one. I think this is ahi chachucha. Hopefully I'm pronouncing that right. So we'll see how that turns out. Again, we need to harvest tons of those. And let's see, we got, I think last week I said all the chocolate pears were red, and that's not really true. I've got chocolate pears, which are right there, and then I've got them adjacent to some 5-star, which is what I was looking at last week, is these 5-star tomatoes. And we'll probably dry these, cut them in half and dry those. All right, let's move on. We got lots to see. So this is our ring with the Tabascos and the bunching onions with a couple of volunteer cantaloupes. And I've just been coming in here and mowing around it. I was trying to keep it hand pruned, but it's just pretty aggressive, and we still have lots of little fruits coming on. And these will make, and there are a number of, more mature fruits, in here. So this couple of plants is going to make, and there's several around here, big ones. Plenty of cantaloupe, and we got tons of cantaloupe on the east trellis. Started using these bunching onions. The Tabasco is looking good. We got, plenty of fruit coming on it. So no worries there. One Tabasco plant is all we need. We've got tomatoes to harvest. I'm not sure I can do this one-handed. I might bust a tomato here, but yeah, I cracked him a little bit. And this is a smaller carbon, but I mean, these are just delicious. So we've got a bunch of these. And I poked that one with the clippers. So we got a bunch of these to get. I'll come back and get those with 2 hands. I mean, look at those. There's just a mess of them. So we're loving the carbon. And I guess I actually like the Prudence Purple, or Prudence Pride. I think it's what it's called. It's so slow to mature. And then this is a yellow Kinstar Starburst. And, we're starting to get, it's hard for me to get a good angle on that pepper. Here's a better angle. So I can get the leaves out of the way. So we're starting to get, ripe Starburst, yellow Starburst peppers there. So we'll try some of those soon. Again, the Buena Mulatas are just loading up. The deal, we've had a ton of black swallowtail caterpillars growing on these, which has eaten a lot of the dill, but that's okay. And they made, some really pretty big caterpillars that have now ran off to make their chrysalis to turn into black swallowtails. So that's really neat. We'll probably grow more of that next year. This is the 7-pot yellow primo. And so we're just starting to get peppers, you know, filling out a number of them, you know, on here. Oh, here's some bigger ones. I just knocked off some peppers with some flowers. Yeah, so those are going to be nice once they turn yellow, and that's enough probably, because those are hot pepper. Here we've got habanadas and I think ají chachucha peppers, and I think even last week there were plenty of habanadas coming on. These will ripen to an orange color, so they're not nearly ripe. Here's some of the ají chachuchas there. So, and there's a number of those down in there. So, all right, let's move over. Let's go this way. So there's the out view on the corn and the amaranth. And the amaranth is just, what a great pop of color in the garden. So we got some volunteer basil back in here. So I think I will cut down a number of those other plants. We've been harvesting okra almost every day. Looks like we've got a couple to harvest here. And we're just gonna get rid of that leaf and take that one. Probably leave that one for a day. And let me grab this. And we'll probably go ahead and take this one. I'll come back and pick those up. And so what we do with these is we just cut them into, you know, the size pieces that you might fry, or we freeze dry them mostly and eat them like chips. So they're just delicious. But we cut them the same size as frying. And I guess you can see a little bit of the corn ears, maybe better here. They're starting to fill out. And some of these on the outside I was able to spray with Spinazad, the silks. And so we'll see if these do better than the interior corn that I really can't get to spray bacteria on them for the ear cutworm or ear cornworm. So we'll find out. And there's another big cantaloupe in this volunteer patch here. Well, let's move over to, you know, our wild card bed, and this is it. And so, you know, things are doing okay. The peanut has really started to take off. In fact, it's got some blooms on it there, those orange yellowish blooms. Got a cucumber beetle there, gone. And the watermelon is starting to take off, and we're starting to help train it up. And the plan here, as soon as one plant sets fruit, we're just going to start pinching off and trimming, you know, tipping the vines and, you know, letting them grow their one melon large. The ginger, I mean, it continues to grow. It doesn't appear super vigorous, but it is growing. And again, I just don't remember what that was that I planted there, but it obviously looks like it's not a weed for sure. So it is something I planted. I just don't remember what it is. Okay, the sunflowers are doing great. And, you know, we put in a second round. So you see some smaller sunflower seedlings around, and so that'll be kind of the second wave of sunflowers. This big amaranth, and I say big because the stalk is so large. I mean, this single amaranth, that's just a big stalk. But it hasn't put on a seed head yet, so it's almost 6 foot tall, 5.5 foot tall, and it's going. The blueberries continue to get healthier and healthier. A lot of green growth on this one, ample green growth on all of them, some more than others, but they all are growing, which is a good sign. And I haven't come in and pruned them or done anything to them yet because I just want them to get established, you know, in this season going into the next season. So, all right, let's move along. Need to come do a little bit of weeding right here. Again, here's kind of a close-up of some of the new growth on this plant. I guess I could come in and pull off all the brown leaves, but I'm just going to I don't think that's a virus or anything. That's just stress from being planted. These volunteers that I said last week I didn't think they were ever going to do anything, they've just gotten super vigorous all of a sudden, and I've been coming out and tipping them every day because they're putting out a tremendous amount of runners. And so by tipping, what I mean is, you know, this is a new runner that's coming on here, and I really don't want, we've got plenty of cantaloupe, so I just pinch the tip and drop it in a bed somewhere. And you can see there's a new female flower right there, little cantaloupe coming on. And so if it gets pollinated, we're just not going to need all of these cantaloupes and vines. Plus, it really adds to an environment for squash bugs and other pests. If these things get out of control, then the pests will get out of control. So the plan here is to keep these under control. I think I showed you last week I'd made 2 clones of this carbon tomato. I had picked one of them to plant, and as we wrap up the tour today, I'll show you where I planted it. I kept this one because I really don't have room for planting 2 of these, but it's just been super vigorous in the pot. I mean, look at it. It's grown really, really well, and it was tipped. So I figured it would come off the sucker and start regrowing, but it's actually started to grow from up higher. So super vigorous plants. I'll probably give this, just at least offer it to someone local who wants to get it in the ground here in the next week. And these back here, I need to come through and prune up again. It is running out into the alley quite a bit, and that's okay. I don't care about that. But here on the back side, I think we've got 3 or 4 cantaloupes. They're hard to see because they're covered up with leaves right now. But we got plenty of cantaloupe, and I want to protect this space for the sunflowers that are coming up, because we have a number of sunflowers that are planted here that should come up along the fence. And then, you know, make sure that light is still able to get in here to the jalapenos, you know, and we've got a lot of jalapenos coming on, you know, here, and we want to make sure they get plenty of sun for ripening, you know, to help them ripen. And these on this end are red Zapotec peppers, and the other end is all orange spice peppers. Now on this trellis, we've been doing the same thing with the tipping of the vines because I really don't need the extra growth. In fact, I'm probably going to have to come through here because it's still putting on plenty of fruit, and we got lots of pollinators this year. The addition of the pollinator garden over here and spreading flowers throughout each of the beds has really increased our pollinator load, and so things are getting pollinated, and we just got tons of cantaloupe, and I don't need that much cantaloupe, really, to be honest with you. We got lots that you can't see for the leaves here, but I'll probably have to come through and look at this. See him? Yeah, we're gonna have to get him. Japanese beetle. So we'll come through and do a hard prune on these. This is the little pink jazz tomato. And I mean, it's growing. I wish it was doing a little better, a little more robust, but it is growing. Hopefully we'll get some tomatoes off of it before frost. We'll see. And so there should be one tomato here, and even if I have to take out this cantaloupe vine here, that's fine. I'd rather have the pink jazz tomato. Moving on, we've got peppers coming on the, I think this is a Foodorama Scotch bonnet, and so it is starting to load up with peppers. I think there's one right here that's ripening, and if it is what I think it is, the Foodorama Scotch bonnet, then this should turn red. It should ripen to a red color. So plenty of fruits coming on there. We looked at those cantaloupe. Let's see, we got little tiny fruits coming onto this, and I don't remember if this is a habanero or what it is. Here's some smaller fruits of it. It's definitely a hot pepper, so all these are hot on this side of the trellis. I mentioned we have cantaloupe, and that's a pretty big cantaloupe right there, and it's still got plenty of time to go. So these are going, and then these are more of the Kinstar yellow starburst, and I don't think we have any peppers as big as the other plant. These just have small fruit on them at the moment, but they'll end up producing. And it's another cantaloupe back there. You can see that. So things are looking good here. Crabgrass, got to get that. And that is about the extent of weeding. You know, once you get this stuff under control, sometimes these baby dandelions, I have to come in with a trowel and get those. But the orange spice are just doing great. Not sure how clearly that's focusing, but I mean, we just got loads of orange spice peppers coming on. So those are a great jalapeno, and these bushes are doing super. And I just have to keep the cantaloupe vines out of here. So you'll see there's a yellow flower. Hopefully you can see that down there, about 8 foot away. And that's from a cantaloupe vine that's made its way out, and they'll attach to the pepper and strangle the pepper. So I just have to come down through here and keep all these vines actually not attached to the peppers, trim them off, keep them up on the trellis, or just start cutting them back, which is probably what I'm going to do. Then you can see some second round sunflowers starting to come up there. These sunflowers are doing great. They're starting to reach maturity, and they're just lovely. So I think we've got red, we've got chocolate cherry, we've got the yellow, and these yellow ones are from Save Seed, and they're just great. And some of them are starting to get close to being able to save seeds. And then again, I need to come in and deadhead a number of these zinnias just so they'll bush and make more, but they've just been really fantastic. They're fantastic every year. So I'm just not happy with the way I seeded them, because I don't really like this fuchsia patch in the middle of this tall mix and this short mix. And so I was looking for a taper, and I just didn't realize how patchy that was going to make that look, but it kind of breaks it up in a way that I don't like. All right, so moving on through the pollinators. There's a bigger shot of the sunflowers. And we've got the cherry tree is still doing good. I think this is week 2. and you know, got a little bit of heat stress and transplant stress, but you know, these lower leaves I think are kind of a key to look for. You know, if they start to really go, then that may indicate a problem. But there's actually, I think, new growth, you know, on both of these stems. There's new, actually, all three. There's new growth there, there, and there. So I think it's okay, and I think it's going to do fine. Here we probably need to trim back these zinnias and let the thyme get some light. It's too early in the morning for the sun to power the solar power for this water feature, but the birds have started to come and drink from this when it's on during the day, and so they'll light on the rim and then, you know, stand on the rocks and eat off the rocks, so that's really great. And then here where you see the Pro Mix on top of the ground, you know, I planted, what did I plant there? Chives. I planted a bunch of chives here, just sort of broadcast a lot of chives, and we're trying to keep that wet and getting chives to grow there. The sage is doing good. I need to come harvest it and freeze dry some of that. Same with the oregano. Need to harvest and freeze dry that oregano, which is kind of anemic, but it still needs to be harvested. The second round of flowers in the back are really starting to pop now and take off. We got zinnias, and I think that's borage right there, which I did all these from seed here in July, just a couple weeks ago. And so those are starting to go well. This maple is doing good, and we're just going to let that grow. It may be in the wrong spot. We may have to cut it down later, but for now we're going to let that go. We just need to broadcast some seeds here in different spots. We did add the bird feeders to support some local cardinals and bird life that we have, and I spilled some black oil sunflower seeds here, and they're all starting to come up. I need to probably thin those out and just see if they'll make more seeds for us, because they're really growing vigorously. They're germinating and growing faster than the birds can eat them, and the birds have found them. So here we are, in this area still needs work, cleaning it out. In fact, I need to start cleaning this up for fall and get ahead of it. The Japanese beetles and the grapevine beetles have been doing a little bit of damage on the lower leaves, but honestly the cardinals have been coming in and helping keep the grapevine beetle under control. I probably need to trim off, you know, prune out some of these lower leaves. But there's a second round of flowers that is starting to pop, all these little seedlings that you see around here, including some cosmos and other flowers that we've got planted there. There are a few weeds in here we need to just come through and pull, but mostly I think it's doing really well, and we should get some late fall flowers. Again, on the weeding, you know, when you see these, if you just bend down, just pull them, and that will help you stay on top of the weeding. Butterfly bush, we've seen one more monarch, so we've seen a total of 2 so far this year, and you know, I don't know, we've got another monarch bush in the back, but it's probably covered up with stuff. So we've been trying to keep this grape trained and pruned. I need to come back out here today and do some more on that, but I think it's going great. So hopefully next year we'll have some grapes on this Reliance grape, and that one too. So the valerian is interesting, and I cut all the flowers back. It's got some heat damage here. I need to trim that up. But anyway, this just needs a lot of work. So let's move over and do the final pass of the garden. And let's start with this Chicago hardy fig, which again, if you remember from the June video, this is pretty small this year, and it had actually grown for a month or so by the June video. But it's getting figs on it. So if you look in the middle of this, where this leaf is coming off, this leaf node, there's a little bump there. It's actually more than a bump. It's starting to stick out and protrude, and that is a little fig. And then everywhere in these leaf nodes, where you see those two little bumps right there in the leaf node, that's going to be a fig too. Now, the only question that I have is, are they going to ripen? Are the figs going to mature and ripen before our frost? Because we just planted this tree this year. So this is a lot of vigorous growth. We've only given it one dose of liquid fertilizer, and that was an 18-8 or something like that, in a half dose, half strength. So anyway, the Chicago Hardy is doing great. Let's move on the final pass of the garden. Here we go. All right, so we've been eating more onions out of the garden, and as I mentioned before, these are the biggest bulbed onions that we've ever had, and these were started in the late winter inside and then pulled apart from, a broadcast tray and then planted out in the late winter, early spring. But they're starting to fall over, and we just gotten some rain, and so once this dries up a little bit, we'll just harvest these and start curing the rest of them. This area that you see here with the grass clippings on it, that has some cilantro seeded in there. They've been in there for about 5 days. This is still open. It's going to get seeded for, garlic, leeks, and we're going to try overwintering some onion seedlings that we just started inside a couple days ago. Again, if you follow us on Instagram or even some of the YouTube shorts, you'll kind of see some extra content that we do during the week. Same thing here. This is going to be a cilantro patch that's harvested by the frost, and then garlic and onions and leeks are going to go in this openish area right here. That carbon tomato that I planted, that clone, I planted it right here because ultimately this bigger, older carbon tomato is going to end up getting pruned back. It's going to make tomatoes, it's going to prune back, and we're going to get rid of it. And this tomato is doing good. It's got some new growth on it since I planted it. So all this right here is new growth. And it's been in the ground, I want to say 5 days. So it definitely has made it through some 106-degree temps. So the clone worked, the transplant worked. We did it in that pot with Pro Mix, and that's just a great way to get a jump start. I wish I had the Pink Jazz, had one of the Pink Jazzes, and then I could have cloned it instead of starting it from seed as a direct sow. So that really winds it up. We need to get some of these leeks out. We got a few leeks left. This one's going to seed. The pollinators love that. And we may just let that go to seed and collect those, because these were started last fall as seed in the ground. I had just a single row of them, and they made it. And so that's what I want to be taking seed from, is something that grew in our climate, in our winter, made it through and produced. So we'll take some of that. I guess last but not least, we can talk about the Apache thornless blackberry. And so we got one here, and it's gotten a little heat stress and stuff. We're losing a few of the lower leaves, but the top is doing really well, and it's put on more growth. A little yellow there. I don't know if it needs some nitrogen or if it's just growing really fast because of the rain, but we need to get this in the ground. And I've got 2 of these plants, and so the goal is by the next video, hopefully these will be in the ground. So that's the plan. All right, well, it's time to harvest all of these carrots and chop the stuff on the bed and get this bed prepped. And that's what we're going to get on to. All right, well, thanks for joining the garden tour today. That kind of wraps it up. Again, if you want a little extra content, you can follow us on Instagram at FrostySith. If you liked the video, give it a thumbs up. If you haven't subscribed yet, please take a moment, hit the subscribe button, click the bell so that you get notifications every time we update new content on what we're really doing in life. So gardening, canning, freeze drying, backpacking, camping, whatever it is, this is where you're going to find it. So hit the subscribe button and like if you liked it, and we sure do appreciate it. Stay tuned for more adventures, and remember, whenever you can, get up, get out, live a little. See ya. So tonight we're having brisket, curried rice, sweet heat baked beans that you can see right there. We got some tomatoes going around, and we just mix all that up and let it hydrate, and then eat it with a spoon. It is delicious.